Watch Ben Shapiro totally fall apart over trying to justify the absurd Comey indictment. I went over the whole thing yesterday. If you've read it or know the facts of the case, you would know that even if everything in the indictment is correct, every single fact, and they are not correct, it would still be the dumbest thing you have ever read, right? And Ben Shapiro knows this. He talks about it in his video I'm going to play right now. He's not a dumb person like Megyn Kelly or Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens or Matt Walsh. He knows he has to walk a fine line. Here's the video.
President Trump is not somebody who hides the ball. If he believes that the DOJ is in fact a tool to go after political opponents, he will just use it that way, and he will do so out loud. Now, do I think that that is significantly worse than what Democrats did? I actually don't. I think the fact that he's doing it out loud at least makes the game pretty clear. I'm not sure that it is better to do this sort of stuff quietly, to pretend that the DOJ is actually an objective arbiter and enforcer of the law, rather than just saying the quiet part out loud, which is what President Trump is doing. And here in 2021 is James Comey calling for Trump to be thrown in prison.
Convict him, bar him from future service, have the prosecutors, the local prosecutors in New York, pursue him for the fraudster that he was before he ever became president, lock him up for the garden variety frauds he did there, but don't give him that center stage, that dominant role in our national life, just down the street where Joe Biden is trying to heal this nation.
Again, President Trump, he does the quiet part out loud. So what does this mean? Well, I mean, I think that, as always, the question about President Trump, the left always asks the wrong question. They look at a body of an institution prone in the street, and they see President Trump standing over the body, and there's a knife in the back of the body. And they're like, well, Donald Trump killed this institution. Donald Trump killed the DOJ. And those of us who've been watching politics for a while say, no, Donald Trump is just the coroner. What do polls show about American trust in the DOJ? When did it begin to decline? According to Comment, American trust in the DOJ is at a historically low level, with recent polls showing only 39% of Americans view the DOJ favorably, while 46% have an unfavorable opinion as of August 2025. The decline began gaining national attention around 2020, and public confidence fell sharply as the nation entered the 2020s, marked by political controversies, high-profile investigations, and shifting partisan views. So it actually started to dump while Joe Biden's era was happening. The steepest drop in trust began around 2020, and that was largely because of perceived politicization of the DOJ. That's because of all of the news that was arising about Trump-Russiagate. All that stuff, you remember, came to a head in 2020. Earlier declines were gradual throughout the 2010s. But again, that controversy over the DOJ, the FBI, Trump-Russiagate.
All right, so a few things there off the bat. Number one, Trump is hiding the ball, or at least he thinks he is. But all of his officials, right, Kash Patel is saying that this is some major achievement of justice. You know, if Charlie Kirk was still alive, that's what he would be saying. Right? He would be saying exactly what the FBI is saying. What his whole government is saying, what Fox News is saying, that this is some magical achievement of defeating the deep state. He is not saying, I'm going after this guy because I hate him. And by the way, Biden and Obama did none of that. Ever. Right? The biggest examples you can point to are standard bias in government. When FBI officials or employees of the IRS are Democrats, right, overwhelmingly, and they happen to have a tendency to focus more on their political opponents. That is not a top-down organized thing like this is, right? And he knows there's no evidence here. He knows there's no evidence for John Bolton. John Bolton, there's not even anything that you can possibly write about John Bolton, really. That would even, like at least James Comey has his former deputy, Andrew McCabe, even though he's like a chronic liar, and I explained that in the last video, beyond the shadow of a doubt, saying that he did this crime, and that crime, by the way, helped Trump win the election. So that's why the whole thing is silly, right? But even the comments in this video say, you make no sense. You're saying Trump has an obligation to fix the institution, and he's literally making it worse. How are you saying that's not objectively worse than anything that Biden or Obama did, right? And his examples for Biden and Obama are laughable, right? And he doesn't believe them, I don't think, right? He did a video a few years ago about the Jack Smith indictments, or what Jack Smith was going to bring against Donald Trump. It was the worst legal analysis video I might have ever watched in my life. He literally got the charges wrong on their face. You could have looked up the charges as you're watching the video and see that what he was saying was completely false. But as far as the decline in the American people's trust in the DOJ, he points it to 2020, right? Ironically, Perplexity, put it in the Trump term, so it kind of contradicted his point. And if he'd asked Perplexity, right, he has to be very careful what questions he asks Perplexity because it can easily derail his whole show, right? And he obviously does that beforehand. If he had asked Perplexity for examples of what Biden did, or what exactly caused the decline, it would have just like blown it up. Because what Perplexity would have said, at least from my knowledge, I mean, I haven't asked Perplexity, it would have separated it along partisan lines. So you have the Democrats seeing that Trump's DOJ is systematically letting off all these people that were found, in some cases like Michael Flynn, to have pled guilty to crimes. Just like let go of them under Trump's pressure. Roger Stone, the prosecutors recommended a 7 to 9 year sentence. Trump went on social media. He's like, don't do this. As DOJ people, they pushed to have a lighter sentence. Right? And 4 people resigned over that because it was clearly immoral. And obviously Stone got pardoned anyway because, Trump pardon dangled the entire Mueller investigation. So we don't know if there was Russian collusion. Right? That is, people should be shouting that from the rooftops every time someone says the Russia hoax. We have no idea because Trump ruined the entire thing. He said to all the people who have the information, I will pardon you if you don't comply. And guess what? They didn't comply, except Michael Cohen and Michael Flynn in a little part of it. Right? So that is the real decline of DOJ. It's not about Russiagate, right? That's what the Republicans were looking at. And they were looking at the Mueller report, and they thought the DOJ, was some kind of deep state. They were complaining about the Obama DOJ, right? That the Mueller report said that there was no Russian collusion, and that Trump did nothing wrong. Even though if you read the Mueller report, it outlines at least 10 things that Trump did to completely destroy the investigation, and that he would have obviously been charged if he wasn't president and convicted, right? And on James Comey saying that Trump should be in jail, yes, he's committed 4 separate categories of treason, I believe, at 4 different times. Mueller obstruction, 2019 impeachment, 2021 impeachment, and defrauding National Archives in 2022, right? 2022 is less treasonous because he wasn't a president, but it was still absurd if you know the facts of the case. But the main thing I want to take away from this video is just how disingenuous this guy is. That he can go on there and say, I voted for this guy, but he, according to my own logic, he's making everything 10 times worse. Right? And he can't even give an example of anything that Biden or Obama did that was anywhere near 0.1% of anything Trump has done with the DOJ so far. And I would put the Obama, Clinton, Russiagate, Tulsi Gabbard stuff at the top of that. Comey under that. Anything, John Bolton, whatever. The FBI firings that were clearly against people who had in the past, opposed one of Trump's talking points, right? Or who had talked favorably about prosecuting these Jan 6 riders, or had talked favorably about the FBI's choice to raid Mar-a-Lago and successfully recover many classified documents that Trump had ordered his staff to systematically hide from his lawyers in order to defraud the DOJ. It's just not, it doesn't make sense to me. And the brain is broken.